That's the intro. That's it. Ah, just kidding. We'll get in a better mood than that. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Gordo Gams. Welcome back to another full card breakdown. This time for Dana White Contender Series Season 7, Week 6. We are keeping it going, and like, you can't tell me that I'm not heartbroken right now, but we're still pumping out the content. We're still giving you guys some Dana White Contender Series breakdown. I'll try my best to keep the mood going, but we just did suffer a pretty big Monday night loss, and that's okay because Tuesday is my new favorite night of the week, right? We'll make it back. We'll have some fun there. We do have ourselves some scraps to break down. But without further ado, as always, we're breaking this down with my main man, Liam. Of course, the man from New York himself. So I don't know if he's got any words for me or something like that. But without any further ado, let's bring him in here. As always, we do these shows on alternating weeks. On all the even weeks, we are on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. On all the odd weeks, we are on Liam's channel. We're coming off not only a big win last week, but one where Liam tried to warn you guys. Who else was on Rivera? Who else? Tell me that right now. Welcome back, my friend. How you doing?
Yeah, man, it's good to be back. Didn't end up taking that bet myself, but glad if I helped steer anybody in the right direction. Glad if I saved you from a bad bet on the other side, whatever it may be. But ended up leaning heavily towards that under 1.5. And at the end of the day, those were two violent individuals, big men, and it met a violent resolution. So great fights last week. Let's see if we could get the same kind of quality this week. And we got our guy Pierce to break it down with. So can't ask for much more than that.
Spoiler, man. I was gonna say, man, it's time to. No, it's not. We want to give you guys the best possible content we can here for Dana White Contender Series. So we're bringing on a third guest, third panel member to break down these fights, give you guys another perspective, and hopefully go out there and be able to cash some tickets. That is none other than a new friend of the show. We do have Pierce Big Bird on Twitter, and a guy whose team won this weekend, which is not something I could say. So how are we doing, my friend?
Doing great, man. I'm not gonna get in between this little beef you guys. We got Upstate versus the City right now, but the Eagles got the win yesterday. Something you can't say, Gordo.
Yeah, that's true, man. That's true. And it wasn't the prettiest performance, but I think we're gonna have some pretty good fights to bounce back with tomorrow, to say the least. We are on a bit of a hot streak, Dana Contender Series wide, and I'll sacrifice some Bills wins for some success there. So let's dive into it without further ado. We're gonna pull up the odds, and as always, I don't think Liam, you haven't seen these odds yet, have you?
One fight I know the odds for, which is the women's fight, because I couldn't help myself. I had to go look at that one.
Well, we do have ourselves the full lines out. We have props out as well, and it is a it is a nice. This is a Liam time stream. Let's say that the nighttime stream. I won't lie, fellas. Not only have the Bills lost, I got class at 7 a.m. tomorrow, so we're going to be booking through these ones. I'm happy to break it down. That wouldn't change a thing in the world. And let's do so with the very first fight of the night. We have ourselves a fun scrap with the 13-0 undefeated John Matsumoto versus the 6-0 Casey Tanner, a battle of undefeated prospects, and one that has definitely caught my attention. Not only can we see ourselves a high-level bout here, I think that one's going to bring a ton of excitement, but two prospects who I believe could be considered UFC ready. I do like what I'm seeing on tape from both sides. I know that prior to even doing tape last year, just looking at the record and Tapology taping it, Liam and I were talking about how Matsumoto is the guy that they're trying to promote here. However, you go back to the research, both these guys seem to impress. Both these guys seem to have decent resumes, and I'm excited to break it down here. Other thing to notice is we do have ourselves a huge line correction here, one that I'm excited to dive into too, but I wouldn't be the best host if I wasn't letting my new guest go first. So let me have Pierce go first here, break down this first fight of the night. How do you see this one going down?
We got first fight, first bet of the night. So I did get in on the early Casey Tanner numbers. I got him at plus 135. I was pretty surprised when I checked my phone to see the line flipped. At first, I thought it was Andrew Gombas, but turns out it wasn't. So I don't know who's dropping a bomb on Casey Tanner, but my thought going into this fight, I thought it was supposed to be a pick'em line. I think pick'em's accurate. If you can get plus money on both sides, I don't think that's a bad idea. But my thought process on Tanner is it seems like a pretty binary matchup from the tape. You got Matsumoto, who's got the classic Brazilian Muay Thai. He's going to look to walk you down, put up some volume, and stay in your face, where you got Casey Tanner, who is training at Fight Ready with Santino DeFranco. And if y'all watched the Santino's video for the Contender Series, I did say I'm never picking against a Fight Ready guy, especially on his own channel. And I'm not changing it again this week. So I think Casey Tanner is going to get the grappling off. And when you look at Matsumoto's, like a lot of his regional fights, where it's not like every single fight, but I've seen him get taken down in a lot of fights. And when you look at Casey Tanner's game, he's going to go for wrestling. I think he flows very well on top. Brandon told me he was a brown belt. I thought he was a black belt, but still, he's probably one of the best brown belts in the fucking country right now. And with Matsumoto, I feel like he definitely can have success on the feet. I do think Casey does shell up when he gets pressured on the feet, which could be a concern here, but I think Casey's a smart fighter. I don't think it's a wash on the feet at all. I think Casey can hang on the feet, whereas in the grappling, I feel like Casey's gonna find his way on top in scrambles, and I wouldn't be surprised if Matsumoto's gonna be the guy playing jiu-jitsu, maybe looking to attack front chokes, and he'll end up on bottom. So I'll take the guy with the grappling path. Now that the odds is about minus 120, I wouldn't go too crazy on Tanner, but I did see some people mention Casey Tanner by decision. I don't know what price it is right now, but it opened plus 300, or just the goes the distance in general. I think both these guys are really durable, and we've seen in a lot of their fights they do go the distance, especially Matsumoto. He's been 5 rounds before, so I don't think there's a huge cardio edge in this fight. I just think it's a really close fight, and both guys are probably going to be competitive, but it sucks that this is the first fight. I would expect it to be the main event, but who knows what the UFC is doing here. But yeah, we got to go with Casey Tanner, man. Let's go.
Well, my friend, we do have ourselves a fight goes a distance at minus 115, over 2.5, minus 145, best market wide. And I don't mind the shot on the over there. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to steal the mic from Liam, because I know my stance here. I know when it comes to picking a side, I'm going to be head to head with Pierce. So I'm going to leave it to Liam to break the tie here. And let me just give you a little reasoning towards this Matsumoto side. Now, again, we are bringing on these new guys who are a 3-man panel. So that's kind of good. Let's make sure we're taking all the information we can. And on my side of things here, when I am talking about Matsumoto, first of all, I want to acknowledge that if you were able to get that plus money price tag on Tanner, I would give that to you, because I do think this can be a very close competitive fight. I think both these guys could make their way to the UFC at some point, but I think at this point right here, although the plus money angle is there and that wrestling angle is for Tanner, there are some sides to like here on the Matsumoto side. First of all, being that level of competition. He has someone the way better record here, 68-24-1 combined opponents record, whereas Casey Tanner 13-10. Low level competition, big breaking competition. And there is, although he's going out there and disposing of his opponents correctly and properly, there isn't much of a sample size, right? There's not a lot to be, let's say, convinced on at a chalk price tag. Second thing being, I do think that the discrepancy in the grappling is smaller than the discrepancy in the striking, right? We do have someone who I think is going to be the clear minute winner on the feet, which is Matsumoto. I think he's going to have the advantages there. And although I would not put it past Tanner having some grappling success, I do think that is a large possibility here. We have to acknowledge the black belt of Matsumoto, how comfortable he is off his back, how active he is back there. And although he is willing to give up submissions, I think he's comfortable in his ground game to go out there and have success in that own right, threatening someone like Tanner, being the best grappler he's fought yet. So yes, I do think there is a possibility for Tanner to go out there and grapple his way to a 15-minute decision. And I do think for that reason, good on you, Pierce, for getting that plus money. Good on you for looking at that win by decision at plus 175. But when it comes to me to pick a winner, and when it comes to me when I'm seeing this Matsumoto guy at plus 113 here, that's going to be a side I have to take. I do think he has more paths to victory in this matchup. I do think he's someone who has fought the better level of competition, is more, let's say, battle tested at this point, and is going to put up a good fight. Either way, if you got plus money on either side, I'll be content with that one, because I do think this is a very, very close fight. And honestly, don't force any action. Maybe just enjoy this one if you are considering both sides here. Liam, though, break the tie for me. How do you see this one going down?
Yeah, well, I'll come off the rip and say you guys are way more convicted on this matchup than I am, right? Because you guys both have bets on the matchup. And also, this is the matchup I've done the least research on so far. Number one, the huge adjustment that you're talking about. I haven't really looked at these lines, but that's something that's just going to push me away from betting a fight like this, where guys like Pierce that I know are sharp are sitting with the plus 135 on the favorite. Those are fights I normally just stay away from by and large. But talking about the matchup a little bit, on paper, two guys, like you guys mentioned, a little bit more likely to go to decision, right? Especially when you're looking at this bantamweight division, when you're looking at two guys that probably present enough cardio to go 15 minutes. I do feel like this is a fight that probably goes to decision more often than not. When you're looking at Bet Online hanging a minus 160 when a lot of other books are at the minus 115 range, I think that tells you a lot of what you need to know. You know, never met a bookie with a part-time job, and the guys at Bet Online are quite good at what they do. So when they're leaving themselves out there, you know, vulnerable in that way, I think it's because they have an opinion. And I think in this case, they think this fight's going over. So if we've got two durable guys, what I then start looking at is you got two guys that are, young enough, but one of them is like a young guy who could still get way better, 24 years of age. You know that at 25, 26, 27, this kid's going to continue to make marginal improvements, but he's had 13 fights under his belt. Like, this kid has already got a lot of experience. I talk about one angle on this show all the time, which is younger fighters with more experience. Tanner does have amateur experience as well. So it's not like he just has the pro fights under his belt. I think some people will cap that a little bit and maybe write off the fact that Tanner does have a lot of experience. Both these guys, again, this is my humble opinion, look like they're on supplementation that is outside the rule set to me personally, but that's just a eyeball scan. And, you know, No accusations. Nobody sue me. It's all good. We're all friends here. I don't care what you take. But when I look at a matchup like this, I don't see any one edge that makes it super clear. I look at the odds. It tells me it's a pretty closely lined fight. I agree. I'll lean towards the younger guy here, the Brazilian. I tend to lean towards Brazilians by and large in these kind of matchups. They're young, they're experienced, but they're also willing to bang it out on the feet. Sometimes we see these American guys. I love them, right? I'm an American myself, but sometimes we see them get put under a little bit of pressure, maybe a little less willing to go through it. In terms of, you see this guy over the weekend. Did you see his face after? He's posting a video right after. I can't wait to get back in there in the octagon. Felipe Dos Santos, I'm talking about from Shootbox, right? The guy still got marks all over his face. He's like, yeah, get me back in there, coach. I don't feel like everybody always brings that same attitude, intensity to the cage. So I like this kid, Matsumoto. But again, he's young. So if he lost here, he could be one of these guys. And we're going to talk about the theme of this Dana White Contender Series, which is everybody's being asked back. Everybody that failed to make a contract last year but still has some upside, hey, here you go, another opportunity. So that's the one thing with Matsumoto. I feel like this is not a high-pressure spot for him. I feel like if he loses here, hey, everybody's got to take an L in this sport eventually. You come back on next season, we'd love to do it again with you. So for me, that's the other thing. It's like motivation spot. This is the biggest spot of his career. This is the hardest fight of his career in a lot of ways. So do I want to get involved? At plus money, I'm more tempted. But at minus 250, there would have been simply no chance.
Hey, sounds good, man. And I mean, if we look at it being a tightly contested bout here, especially on the money line side of things, how do we attack the prop market? Well, first of all, Pierce, you can comment on this being the guy against me, but there are a couple lines that do stand out. First of all, when I look at predicting this fight, the over seems to be a decent spot here, whether it be the striking volume of Matsumoto or the wrestling control of Tanner here. I don't think a finish is all too likely. I think that Matsumoto is competent enough on the ground to hold his own. And with that being said, does that lead me towards maybe a decision prop for both sides, or even more on my side? If I think Matsumoto has maybe some grappling success, some striking success on the feet, his finish only line at minus 105 is something I'm looking at here, just because I think he is durable enough on the ground and competent enough to put up with the ground onslaught of that. And on the feet, I do think he has the clear advantage. Thoughts on that one at all there, Pierce?
Yeah, honestly, yeah, I don't think that's a bad look, but I guess in the case he does have good ground and pound, so maybe if he's able to get off on a lot of top control, which is kind of what I expect, maybe he can find the finish. But honestly, I struggle. I think both these guys are just too high level to the point where it's like they're going to be really hard to finish each other. But I will also add, I was talking to Brandon about it. Some people might bring up, oh, Casey's not the best competition. He hasn't fought that much. He hasn't been as active as Matsumoto. Well, Casey's dealt with a lot of injuries in the past, and Brandon was telling me that nobody wants to fight him, and understandably so. But it's Casey's 31 years old, man. This is the best spot for him in his career to get into the UFC. And Santino, he's been with Santino for like 7 or 8 years, man. So I'm really rooting for the kid. But he's got a tough matchup in front of him. But it's the most high level fight. Honestly, you guys think this is the most high level fight of the season?
Oh, what was the one that jumps off the page to me as a pretty good one? There was one earlier too that was good, but definitely on the card for sure, and definitely top 5 on the season. I do think both these guys can make their way in.
Yeah, I think even if Matsumoto loses, like Liam said, we'll probably see him back next season. I mean, hell, if you got Malik Lewis coming back the next season, I'm sure they'll be happy to have Gene back next year if he loses.
For sure.
He even wins on his 3rd run around.
We'll talk about that one shortly. We'll be sure to talk about that. I guess my final point to say on this one is if we're looking at both these fighters' path to victory, right? Pearson making the argument that wrestling is definitely there. I completely agree. I think wrestling is definitely a path, but I don't think he'll have necessarily a grappling advantage. I think his path to victory is largely rooted in control time, which I think is definitely possible. Take the decision line. But if we're looking at this finish only line, the guy who I see with a much larger indication to get a finish would be not only the grappling upside and submission upside off his back from Matsumoto, but the forward pressure, the volume, the powerful strikes on the feet. That is going to be the biggest challenge yet for Tanner. I do like that finish only line. I might get there. And honestly, I might have to go head to head with Pierce on the money line. We'll see how that goes. I got to trust my balls. I got to trust my reads. And if we're getting both of us at plus money, we're beating the bookies, right? Go ahead, Liam.
I feel like we can't get off this fight before I just mentioned this kid has the coolest birthday I've ever seen. I like to think I have a pretty cool birthday. This guy, 9999. Come on, bro. It's the coolest birthday I've ever seen.
Wow. There you go, man. We all know your birthday too, man. I like your birthday. Mr. 6'9" over here, aren't you?
See, that's what I'm saying. You know, it's normally hard to find a birthday where I'm impressed. Color me impressed. 9999. This guy is fucking baller.
Well, on that note, we will move on to the next fight of the night. But before we do so, let's share out the chat here. I forgot to do that going in. I think I'm still soaking in this L to Zach Wilson over here. So we'll see what happens. But Mushrooms here saying, what's up, Gordo? What's up, Liam, as well? I'm sure he said, what's up to Pierce as well. Cole saying, hanging out here. Hitman rubbing in a bit. I'll let it happen, Hitman, how you doing? There's Big Bird making the comment himself. Jeremiah Wells. Furio on Casey Tanner this week. No, he's a sharp guy. I know he'd be sounding good to hear that as well. And there's Mushroom born in 69. My man, I appreciate you hanging out nonetheless. All right, let's keep going, man. Next fight up, we do have ourselves a female fight. 11-3 Julia Polastri versus the 9-2 Patricia Alujas. And let's get the elephant out of the room first here. We have a massive WMMA favorite. And typically, sometimes it doesn't bode well, but other times it looks like it did last week, where we have someone go out there, just absolutely steamroll opponent as a -350 favorite and live up to the price tag. I don't want to keep stealing the spotlight from my guest here and going first, but I don't think Alujas is that good of a UFC prospect. I do think that she has a lot of room for improvement. And although Polastri is someone who has holes in her game, who has flaws, I do think she is the clear favorite side here. Now, with that being said, the other big elephant in the room here is her fighting Jasmine Jasudavicius last time she was on Dana White Contender Series. I know Liam is going to mention that whole returning fighter for Dana White Contender Series sort of thing, but we do have ourselves someone who is coming back and who did put up a very close competitive fight against Jasmine Jasudavicius, who is I believe she's in the top 15 now, fighting against Tracy Cortez this weekend. So we do ourselves a very interesting matchup here. And to be honest, I thought Polastri did really very well in her matchup. I thought she had some good success against Jasmine Jasudavicius there. And I think that's kind of why I've had success trusting Jasudavicius, because I saw the optics Polastri is putting on the feet there. Nonetheless, we do ourselves a big favorite. We do have ourselves a interesting stylistic matchup. And Liam, I want you to tell me a bit of this price tag, because I did hear you say you were curious about the line here. Did it live up to the expectation, or how do you see this one going down?
Me and the bookmaker felt the same way. I looked at this and I just said to myself, I don't think that Alujas is ready for this level personally. And maybe I'll be proven wrong, right? She's been inactive for a little while. We've seen sometimes these people that are inactive for like a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, they come in, look like a different version of themselves. You think of a Natalia Silva, and some other people from the Contender Series. So, hey, I'm not going to rule that out as a possibility, right? And when you're talking about -400, you are starting to get to that banana peel territory, right? So I didn't see the line and go, all right, I need to get in on that. I just said, okay, yeah, they kind of see it the same way I do, where I think Polastri just has so many clear advantages in this fight. I don't think she's a prize either. Like, I think she's going to get beat in the UFC many times, but I think that when you look at what she brings to the table, she's got a style that can compete. She walks forward, she throws shots, not afraid to get in somebody's face, kind of keeps her hands a little bit too low, relies on her durability and her chin, doesn't have the best defense. But when she's coming forward, she applies a lot of pressure. She does break a lot of women down over the course of the fights. She's throwing low kicks. She's going to the body a little bit. She's willing, to mix it up in the clinch. And she can get on top of women as well. The problem with her game, her takedown defense is terrible, right? She just gives up takedowns all the time, very routinely. But then you see in some of these fights, she's dangerous off her back. She's not incompetent off her back. She doesn't just sit there. She does throw up some submissions. She does try and work back up. But it's not as, intentional as you'd like to see to go out there and confidently lay the -450, right? The only way I think she loses here more often than not is by decision. +650 for the other girl. I think that other girl, she does throw out a decent amount of volume. Almost every fight that I watched of hers is a boring ass decision. I don't think her finishing equity is really there. I don't think she hits very hard. She had fights where she would have the whole fight over 15 minutes. The other girl, they show her face after. It looked like they both were just out there, place barn a little bit. Like neither one of them looked like they were cut, bruised, battered, ripped to shreds. And this other girl, Polastri, is like damaging people, right? She's out there doing damage, getting submissions, passing guards. She looks like she has core competencies in all these areas. I just don't trust this other girl at all. I think she's going to get exploited here when the fight hits the mat. We talked about before some of the common dynamics. If you think somebody can control the fight on the mat, look at the TKO line. It's like 550 compared to the sub line, which has crashed substantially. So those are some of the things that I'm thinking about here. I think it's Polastri. I think it's Polastri ITD. And I do think she's going to run through this.
Hey, I do not mind it, my friend. I have to agree. And before I get to Pierce's input here, I just have to really say this feels like one where you got to find a way to attack the prop market, right? As much as I think Polastri wins this fight at a high clip, are we getting any value at a Contender Series WMMA fighter at -465 here? I don't think so. And that's where I am really interested in one prop in particular, and that's going to be the KO line. plus 550, plus 650 here. I do think that is a much higher indication of happening than the line does entail. She's a very violent finisher. I think she's going to have a big power advantage here. And although it's favored towards a submission, I do think a positional ground and pound TKO or even along the fence TKO can happen here at a higher clip than that price tag entails. I do not mind that at all. I would love to hear your input on that one as well, Pierce. How do you see this fight going down? Or is there any viability in the underdog?
So, I honestly, now that the price is continuing to climb, I'm not saying I'm gonna play Alujas, but I mean, Liam kind of touched on it a little bit. We have seen on the Contender series. I'm trying to think of some that come to mind. This Rayanne Amanda girl from last year that fought Denise Gomez, maybe like Sandra Lovato as well, and even like girls in the UFC like Natalia Silva. They take a long layoff where they're these South American girls. Their tape's horrible, but you can tell that at least for Alujas' case, she's scrappy. I mean, I'll give her that. She's down to fight. But at the end of the day, I've seen her taken down a bunch. And my issue with Polastri at this big price is like I would want her to grapple like consistently, and I just don't think she's reliable to grapple. I think she might actually get into a firefight with Alujas, but she probably does have the power. But I did take a fourth of a unit stab on Polastri by submission when it opened. It was like plus 300. I figured if you guys are saying the KO now because I'm assuming the sub came down a lot, but I figure if she's gonna cover her price tag, it's probably gonna be like an inside the distance prop because I mean, maybe she goes the decision, but in women's MMA, normally it's you don't really see girls covering a high favorite price tag unless you're Natalia Silva when it goes to the scorecards. And we just don't know where Patricia's going to be at right now. 2-year layoff. Maybe she's making improvements. Maybe she's not. But this is Polastri's second time on the Contender series, so they're probably using her as a setup fight. But it's minus 465, man. What value are we getting? Should we have learned our lesson last week with Bruno Lopez and chalk on Contender series? Maybe just steer clear or attack the props like you guys mentioned.
Yeah, and that submission line has now been bet down to plus 160 here. So good on you for getting that plus 300 line. I don't mind it there. Of course, I think that is a big possibility, but really, let's look at percentages here, right? Like, is it that shaded towards a submission when she is so much of a potent striker? Like that, I believe that's her like main style. She wants to strike, and yes, she's gonna have a clear path to victory on the ground. I do think she's probably gonna end up going there, but I would much rather take a plus 600 flyer on the KO than the submission line at where it is right now, plus 160. However, if you have any strong indication either way, it's at a distance plus 130. Fight doesn't go plus 110. It is a WMMA fight, big line. You could just not bet this fight at all. I mean, it is an ugly one when it comes to the betting market, but I do like that there. I think this would be a huge speed advantage for Polastri here on the feet. I think she's going to have a huge advantage to go out there and win this fight that I do think is tailor-made for her. And I do think this is one where she can get this done a multitude of ways. So that is the largest favorite on the card. I do tend to agree with it. And I think it's one where we can just move on, continue to go from there. And as I do so, you see me making a couple faces. I somehow cashed my DraftKings lineups today on all of them, even though the Bills sucked. So I guess I get a little bit of money back for my Soros, and we'll see. I also here's the big one, guys, and I am this is the last thing I'm going to say about football because I just need to get this out of the way. I was playing, so my girlfriend joined my fantasy league with all my friends last year, and she won it. Don't ask me how. She drafted Joe Burrow in like the 3rd round, and she won it last year. Who cares? I play her week 1. We're different countries away right now, but that was the most important fantasy matchup of my life this week, and I won it by 2 points. And she had Tyler Bass on the left in the lineup, and I was sweating. So at least there's some good to come from this loss. All right, let's keep her going, guys. I'm rambling here. This Bills loss is really getting to me. All right, next one up, we do have one that is going to be the 3rd return to the octagon here. A DWCS series for Stephen Nguyen, making the trip back. I know Liam's going to talk about that one. 8-1 prospect versus the 10-2 AJ Cunningham. And again, I'll bring it up one more time. Liam and I like to go over these cards before we even do any tape and look at just who seems to be the A side on paper, who seems to be the guy they're looking to promote here. And originally, before tape, it looked like AJ Cunningham, right? Usually people coming back to the 3rd attempts to have success here in the Contender series, it's going to be not really for them to show off a highlight reel win, right? Like usually if you're coming on here in your 3rd attempt, you haven't had success in the first 2. What means you're going to have success now? That sort of thing. And we saw that with people coming back and returning in general. However, the tape on AJ Cunningham was very, very underwhelming. I think that there was a lot left to be desired. I originally was looking at a huge plus money price tag on him, but it's going to be hard backing these weaker fighters at this big plus money price tag. There's a few things I want to say on this one. But let's just say that This is a sloppy one. This is one where I think there is a clear side. However, we saw already he cannot be trusted. And I do think that this is, if there's any fight I'm not going to bet on this card, it's probably this one. How do we think of Bryce Mitchell's cousin here in AJ Cunningham, Liam?
I'm surprised by the line. I told you I don't really look at these lines before we get to the show. I looked at the Polastri line because I was like, if she's minus 200, like I might have to just, start changing some things around. But I didn't see that, right? So I just didn't get excited, didn't jump out of my shoes. And also I was doing a lot of this, right? Like only this line on my computer screen. You know what I mean? Like I really tried to keep myself from being biased here. And I have to watch more Cunningham footage before I have a strong enough opinion to play him here. However, I would not be taking Stephen Nguyen at minus 285 personally. Why? I don't really rate him that high. He got knocked out by Alon Cruz, who didn't last in the UFC at all, in brutal fashion, one of the worst knockouts you'll see on Contender Series. And then he fought somebody who is not UFC level and not big enough, and that was his last fight, and he didn't get signed because he looked very average. So he's now being brought back, in my opinion, because he's very average, and they know that. And they'd like to see if AJ Cunningham is above average or not. That's my personal opinion, because I don't think they care if Steve Nguyen is with the UFC, not with the UFC. If they never saw him again, I don't think they'd care, because they brought him out. They had every opportunity to sign him. He just got a win, and they said, no thanks, because it was very lackluster, and it's not the kind of fighting that they care for in the UFC. So I think they cared for Alon Cruz knocking him out, and I think they liked that. And I think they gave him another chance because they were like, yo, sorry, bro, that was a brutal one. Here's another shot against a free win. And he went out there and took the free win and didn't do anything with it. So I think now they're punishing that, right? They're like, all right, you take a free win, don't do anything with it. Well, then here's a guy who's actually going to scrap with you. And I've seen Cunningham on the verge of being knocked out, take somebody's back and almost finish them in the same round. He's a guy that's not going to quit on you easily. He's a guy that's got a ton of fights. So amateur, otherwise, the guy's been fighting probably in backyards and bars too. Okay. He's the guy that looks exactly like that. And that's what I expect from him here. But if somebody was to take this fight to the mat, I would not be surprised if it's Cunningham, if he tries to at least. If somebody gives up a bad position here and then recovers from it, I would be less surprised if it's Cunningham that recovers from that bad spot than Nguyen. I think if Nguyen is in a bad spot, he gives up in this fight and quits. Personally, that's just a personal opinion of mine. I haven't liked what I've seen from him under adversity in his fights. I think when he feels like he's better than you, he will whoop on you, right? He can keep you at distance. He can keep doing his thing. But even rewatching that Theo fight, man, I just was like, just not impressed. Like, I just thought it was a very average showing. So minus 285, never. You'd never catch me laying that. God bless. Good luck. Dogger pass for me very clearly.
I see a big smile on Pierce's face there. Enlighten us, my friend.
Yeah, Liam, I know you're not a big Stephen Nguyen fan, but dude, I don't think AJ Cunningham's at this level, man. I've seen him go life and death with Javier Garcia, I think that's his name, and Jonathan Jackson, who's now 6-5. He went to a split decision with him. Wow, you do mention he's tough. He's gonna bring the fight, but that can only take you so far, man. When I look at Stephen Nguyen, I did get a bet on him. They opened him minus 170, and for a lot of the people that are like, oh, you're giving out lines that that we can't bet right now, it's like you gotta get ahead on the tape, man, because with these Contender Series, the markets are a little bit like small, so they might hang you a great number and they move very quickly. But even at minus 285, I'm not saying I would bet it, but I think it's accurate, man. The issue with AJ Cunningham is he's tough, but why is he tough? Because he gets hit a lot, and that's my issue in this matchup. He keeps his head on the center line. Both dudes, honestly, straight up, are kind of defensive liabilities. But at least Steven, he keeps his hands up, whereas AJ, it's like he's kind of take one to give one. But, I mean, even with AJ, he might have a grappling path, but I've seen Stephen Nguyen, he's got good get-ups, and I've seen him hit nice reversals off the mats as well. So I don't really think either guy's going to be getting mad top time here. If anything, I think it's going to be a stand-up fight where we got Stephen Nguyen. He hasn't fought in 2 years, so that is maybe a tad bit concerning because he looked pretty upset when Dana was talking about his performance on the last one against this Theo kid. But at the end of the day, he 30-27 Theo, and he clearly won, and it was pretty dominant. I mean, might not have been dominant when it came damage-wise, but effectiveness, he was very effective in that fight. And I feel like in this matchup, to beat AJ, I think you just need to be basic and be good at the basics. He's out of Fortis MMA. We saw the last guy on the Contender Series this season from Fortis MMA and El Sawadi, and he fought a great game plan. And I feel like if he can just stay on the outside, feint, 1-2s, and leg kicks, I feel like that's the perfect way to beat AJ Cunningham. And honestly, I really do think Steven's being brought in to get into the UFC. He has the Fortis MMA connection, and I don't know. I just don't think how the UFC can watch AJ Cunningham's tape and think that he's going to have any longevity in the UFC, nor do I think Steven is, but I think Steven's a smart fighter, more technical here. AJ could make it a brawl, so maybe if Steven's a bit flaky, AJ could break him, but I think Steven's going to piece him up, man. Just stick with the basics.
Fair play. Yeah. To me, I side with the fact that I think this is just a no-go from a money line perspective for me, just because like we go from such a talent-rich first fight of the night in that Matsumoto one versus one where I don't think these guys are going to have much success in the UFC either way. And I think that my original plan was, let's see how much value we can see on the underdog here. But you look at it and it's like, okay, if this fight was 5 minutes, give me Cunningham. Like I do think he is the more explosive guy. I do think he has more ability to let's say use that grappling path to victory, go out there, stifle him, make it a bit of a brawl, and really question Nguyen's ability to be in there. But we look at him in these later rounds, and he's slowing down, and he is so hittable. And the second that explosiveness on those takedown entries aren't there anymore, he's being pieced apart at range, and that is something that Nguyen can definitely take advantage of. We add in the very questionable level of competition. Combined opponents record of 37-42 for AJ Cunningham. Not something you want to see too much. I do think there are improvements to be made on both sides. However, a third-time appearance for Dana White Contender Series for Stephen Nguyen is not something you want to see. To me, this is a stay-away fight from a betting perspective, from a money line. However, there are some interesting things. I just highlighted the poor cardio for AJ Cunningham. What do we think of this under at plus money?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I don't know, because we've seen in a lot of Stevens fights, he kind of does like the point fight. And has AJ been finishing his professional career? I'm not sure. No, he hasn't. He's only gone to decision in his losses. So, I mean, I do think I've seen Steven crack, man. He's got a big right hand, and he's technical to the point where he could just find the right counter on AJ, because AJ's going to be there to be hit. But I don't know if you guys saw the face-offs. I know Steven had shoes on, but he did look a lot bigger than AJ. And I think if it all comes down to what headspace is Steven is in right now. Is he just taking this fight because they gave him the opportunity, or has he been training his ass off for the past 2 years? And are we going to see improvements? Because both these guys are 29 years old. They size up pretty well. I think Steven's got a slight reach advantage and a slight height advantage. And I mean, when it comes to the under, what's the price on the under? Is it plus money?
Yeah, it's plus 105 for fight and inside distance, plus 124 for under 2.5.
I guess just the issue with that, I think it's a lot of it's like Steven Nguyen winning would be the under, because I don't really think AJ. I mean, maybe he could submit Steven, but I don't know. I think I tend to lean over, so I would probably go with that. But it's at the odds, probably no bet.
To me, it's the poor cardio and just the front loadedness of AJ Cunningham, who's either going to break Nguyen early and really make him question his willingness to be in there, or he's going to fade down the stretch and be countered to the point where it's going to be waved off that way. I think that it's a questionable line, one where I probably shouldn't force action on this. But what if you're telling me what I favor happening, whether it be ends on the distance or go to decision? I think it ends on the distance north of 50% of the time, meaning there is value on this line to me. Liam, do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think this fight probably ends inside the distance. You know, you look at that last fight for Cunningham. I didn't think his cardio looked terrible. He went out there, he got a third round finish. I thought he outlasted his opponent. His opponent at his back in the second round actually hurt him as well. So I just felt like he showed a little bit of resilience and an ability to push through a hard fight in that last one out. And they were talking about the guy who's fighting, bad record, but talented. You know, he's a guy that's not bad at fighting. He was out there shooting good takedowns. He looked like he had some skill. He was landing some shots on the feet. But Cunningham just had too much for him, like just kept in the fight. At the end of the second round, after he was already in bad spots, he was able to switch it around, get on top. He ended the round in the mount. So by the time he came back out for round 3, I think the other dude knew what time it was. And he just came out, broke him. And I feel like Cunningham, that's what he can do well. He breaks people over the course of the fight because he doesn't quit easy. You know, to talk about the fact that he hasn't been finished since he was an amateur, he's had a couple difficult fights and he finds a way to win. Or even the fights that he didn't win, he fought hard for the whole 15 minutes. He gave you his best. I want a fighter that's not going to quit on me for 15 minutes. It's going to try. And I feel like Cunningham does that. He's a Bryce Mitchell archetype kind of guy. So I don't know. I don't hate this. I don't hate this spot at the huge plus money. Minus 170, different situation. It opened minus 115, according to Bet Online. So that's what it seemed like to me. You know, two guys that are a little bit more evenly matched, and at plus 250, I lean towards the dog, and I lean towards the fight not to go. But I'm not bullish on the total, to tell you the truth. I could see it going either way.
Liam, I reckon you'll probably get a better number come fight time, man, because I feel like we're gonna see a lot of Steve money roll in. But I did get.
I'm hodling my hands off the keyboard, and I'll see what happens before fight time. But yeah, that's the thing. If a number's moving your direction, why get involved? Just wait.
Yep, exactly, man. It's gonna be a fun fight, though. I do like your assessment that maybe AJ could take him to a dark place, but even talking about that, maybe AJ live bet could be a good opportunity if we see Steve maybe empty the tank, because AJ, he's been through tough positions and he finds a way to win.
Yeah, I guess my take on the cardio is maybe he's still in that fight, but there's a large gap in his, let's say, explosiveness, right? I think his style is largely predicated on the fact he's able to close distance quickly, get to the body lock, and have success that way. Whereas if he's at range and he's not able to close the distance as quickly, he will get pieced apart because he doesn't have much striking defense. He is willing to use his head as a punching bag because he is so tough, right? So I would like to see... Sorry, considering the cardio that I see to be okay in the Nguyen side, I prefer to see a more early success for Cunningham in order to win this fight. But yeah, I don't mind those spots there. Might get to the under at plus money, as Furio saying. Decent look there. We'll move on.
I'll say one more thing. AJ has been 5 rounds before. I've seen him go a hard 5. So I don't know. I didn't really come away with bad cardio. I just came away that even if he's tired, he's probably still going to fight. But I just think it's technique over grit.
Yeah, I think that maybe the notion there is that he doesn't have that same potent offense the longer the fight goes, right? I think he has a style that's largely predicated on him having energy left, and although he's still going to be in the fight later, you take away a guy like that whose main point is aggressiveness, so you take away that cardio, he's not the same fighter. He's just a punching bag from distance whose shots are more easy to see. So I think his cardio, he won't just gas. He won't be a Daniel Lacerda, but he'll definitely be less effective as the fight goes on. All right, we will keep it moving with a fun one that shouldn't go anywhere near. I don't know, man. We'll see this one. We have 2 Brazilians, 7-1 Eduardo Neves versus 5-0 Janata Diniz. A fun heavyweight fight with 2 killers, heavily shaded towards the under 1.5. We have seen Eduardo Neves before. I've been talking too much, so let's give this to my. Oh, I apologize. Give this to my co-host here, Liam. How do you see this fight going down?
Yeah, I think the under 1.5 should be heavily favored here. You look at these 2 guys, and tell you the truth, man, for a glory kickboxer, I did not come away super impressed with Diniz. I thought that he looked, somewhat average as a striker, for MMA standards, fast enough for a heavyweight, can throw a couple shots in combination. His boxing looks okay. His ability to mix in the kicks is okay. I think his knees are probably his best weapon. He does a good job trapping the head, pulling it down towards his shots. And oftentimes the threat of a knee gets somebody to stand really tall. It just makes it easier to box. So I feel like he does that, playing those 2 threats off each other very well. Pull you down. When you start to get up tall in your stance, he'll throw that left hook around your guard and take you out of the fight. But his MMA fights have been against, horrible competition. Nobody that I thought was very relevant or worth watching. I couldn't find very much footage. I found 2 of his fights and then a bunch of fights from 7 years ago. So as far as I'm concerned, this guy Diniz is a little bit Fugazi to me. That's how I feel, right? When I look at this other guy, Neves, I say to myself, man, Neves actually was expected to beat Parkin, right? And people forget that now. It's been a while. Parkin has now gone on to have a UFC win as well, right? So Parkin's kind of bucked the trend. He was a dog in the Contender series. He was a dog in his UFC debut. He won them both. So Mick Parkin, probably a little bit better than we thought. Why did everybody think Mick Parkin was terrible? He had never fought anybody, right? That was the long and short of it. He had never fought anybody good. He fought Neves, who was the best guy he had ever fought. He finished him in the first round. So it's like, oh, better than we thought. Then he fights the next guy, beats him to clear unanimous decision. Oh, he could fight 15 minutes. He's not just a round 1 guy. All right, so there's the credit to Mick Parkin. Neves was giving him some business in that fight. He was landing some shots. It was a competitive fight. But what happened was DC remarked on the fact that he slowed down in that contest. It was grappling, it was striking. It was wild. It was just 2 bodies hitting each other over and over. And so when he went down in that spot, there was no attempt to get up. There was no, let me push myself to the fence and rally. Y'all ever seen a heavyweight fight? Look at Tai Tuivasa over the weekend, right? He hit the ground. My man was just like, all right, it's tough going for me. I guess I'm stuck here, right? There's not even an attempt to get up in the heavyweight division most of the time. The guy's just big guys on top of me, it's over. So I think of this fight as if one guy can get on top of the other, it's probably going to be the fight. Who's more likely to get on top of who? Eduardo Neves, in my opinion, is way more likely to get on top of this guy, Diniz. Diniz is a big guy, so it's going to be a little bit hard to get him down, I think. But I do think Neves could probably get him down, and I think he probably will. So I kind of like the Neves side here. Again, didn't look at the lines. A little bit surprised to see he's a dog. I know that some of these guys from Glory have had success. Some of them have looked like jobbers, right? Some of them have looked like guys that don't at all deserve to be here. And so I look at this guy, and my eye test is telling me this guy is not the goods. Maybe I'm wrong. And it's heavyweight, right? So if this guy bonks him on the first exchange, I'm not going to be like, well, I don't know anything about the sport. But I am just looking at it like, is this guy really that good? And my personal answer is no. So I think that Eduardo Neves, the UFC is like, yo, bro, sorry we gave you that hammer from England last time. We thought he was just another guy. So now let's run it out there again.
Yeah, I don't mind that spot there. I think when I was coming back and doing tape, I think two things were very clear. One, Diniz does have fight-ending power, but he is no killer by any means. And I completely understand the opportunity to take the underdog here in Neves. He was what, minus 275 against Parker in that matchup. That is the only bout he's lost. He's had success in other bouts, but you see him go out there and do the research on tape, and he's a guy who likes to brawl, and he himself is one that is going to fit perfectly into the style of someone that Diniz could have success for in his core competency, right? When he goes back and he gets hit once and he's like, all right, what's my reboot section? What is the one thing I'm known for? And that's him going out there and striking at a high clip. And that's something that I do think that probably wouldn't bode well for him. If he gets a good camp and if he does his research on his opponent, he would know that using his ground game would go out there and lead to a lot of success. The problem is both these guys are guys who have only wins by knockout, and you have to, let's say, prepare for the outcome that this is going to be a longer kickboxing affair because of that. All right. With that being said, any grappling at all, the line flips, and Neves is a large favorite because I do think he has that path there. I think he is much better in that aspect of MMA, and I do think Diniz makes mistakes. However, he just has power in his hands, and there's no debating that him landing once here could be the end of the fight. However, Liam, you may have already mentioned this, but it falls into your category, right? Younger fighter, more experience. Neves is a guy who is 22 years old, still making improvements. I do like what I'm seeing from him. And me, myself, and I, we're also confused with the way the line is now. However, it's just the style that Neves brings leaves a lot of opportunities for Diniz to land that knockout blow. So I'm very tentative on this one. However, if Pierce got a good debate for either side, maybe talk me in, maybe talk me out. I'm excited to hear about it.
Dude, I can't believe the amount of people betting Diniz with confidence this week, man. I haven't bet Neves, and I don't know if I will, but I feel obligated to, man. I did actually. I'm surprised they hung such a line. I know he's got 0 submissions. They opened his sub prop 16-1. I thought that was ridiculous. The issue with Neves is he's kind of stupid. So, would it shock you if Neves were to come out and not grapple when he stands and bangs with Diniz? It wouldn't for me, but I will say I think Neves is faster. Diniz seems a bit plodding and slow, but he does have power. I'll give him that. Power is a great equalizer, especially in the heavyweight division. So he could always find the first round knockout, but it's like you're pricing him minus 150. And like Liam said, he's fighting grandpas, man. He's not fighting anyone worth noting. Whereas Neves, he's not fighting the best guys either, but he's fighting an LFA Brazil. He's at least getting good looks. Whereas, I mean, he did not look the best against Parkin, but he did hit a nice wizard throw. So if he hits one of those on Diniz, I don't know if Diniz is getting back up, man. Like you guys said, the grappling's there, but it's just a matter of whether Neves pursues it because plus 130, man, I don't know. I think it should be a pick'em or even slight favorite Neves because he's got more MMA experience, man.
Yeah, and I think too, a large thing here is the if, ands, or buts about it too. If we're talking about ifs and we're talking about these situations that we don't see happening too often, who do you think is the better minute winner and fighter down the stretch?
That's a tough one because we've seen Neves slow down before too. So it's not necessarily that he's like a cardio machine, but at least I've seen him in the second round, whereas Diniz, I haven't seen him be a nail. He's a great hammer, but we don't know what he is like a nail. And Neves, I don't know. I think he probably does have the cardio advantage down the stretch just because, especially if they grapple, we don't know what Diniz could be a white belt, man. He could be absolutely horrible on the mat and have no sense of getting up. So I don't know if I can trust Neves, but talking to you guys, I feel like it's a system play. We have to play Neves, younger and more experienced, and he's a dog too. That's the crazy part.
Liam, Anything to
The
add here?
one thing I would say is Diniz definitely has more relevant, like, world-class fights. Like, if you just talk about world-class fights, he's had more of them, right? He fought Rico Verhoeven, for fuck's sake. I mean, like, he's not going to be afraid of Eduardo Neves on the feet at all. But I do think that can be a blessing or a curse, right? That guy last week was not that worried about the shots coming back at him until I think his name was Dylan Salvador. But either way, like, he's not that concerned about the shots coming back at him. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, I'm knocked out. And it's the first round. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's his name? Ismail Bonfim, who's not a glory kickboxer, but you get my point. It's just like sometimes guys are like, hit me again, hit me again. I can't take another shot. And I just feel like this guy, Diniz, he's not afraid to go out there and push himself into the pocket to throw some shots. He gets hit in his fights, but he's normally the guy who's delivering with more power. He's been knocked out before in kickboxing, not very frequently, but it's happened to him before. Head kick knocked out before. So I feel like this guy, he's taken more damage, way more damage, right? Neves at 22, a little bit younger, a little bit fresher, way less miles on that engine. And so all those things plus the grappling upside, very hard to ignore. And I think that sub prop at 16-1 could end up looking like the best prop of the night, dude. Like one takedown and you could just look like a fucking genius. So great number.
And well, unfortunately not there anymore. We got plus 750. We'll have to see how it opens on domestics. Pierce, did you get that in at all, or were you just seeing how it opened?
I got it for like a quarter of a unit. I can't trust myself to put any more than that, man. Can't. But I don't know.
Neves is one of those guys who does the ground and pound, Pierce. If you know what I mean. Like, he's a preference of ground and pound kind of guy, but that doesn't mean that against a kickboxer you won't just take whatever's there, right? He gives his neck for a second, take it.
Dude,
Ask Carlos Ulberg.
For all we know, this guy might just tap to a neck crank or the first submission even Neves go for it, even if it's like a
standing guillotine or head and arm choke like Amanda Lemos.
It's a funny fight, man. I just know if Neves strikes, we might be in for a quick night. But it's be one of those. It's either gonna look like the worst bet of all time, or we're gonna be looking like minus 200, minus 300. But it's heavyweight for you, man. Volatility to the max.
All right. Well, with that being said, we are down to our final bout of the evening. We have ourselves a main event between a UFC returnee, and not just any, the man, the myth, the legend who fought Trevor Peek, Malik Lewis 6-1 versus the 13-2 James Llontop out of Peru. And this is another interesting one fight at 155, right? You have a guy, Malik Lewis, who, I mean, if he wasn't fighting Trevor Peek, probably would have finished a lot of the other fighters stepped aside the cage of them. I mean, he had a very good, successful first round, and he couldn't get him out of there. And now he's back facing a part of the world that the UFC is trying to promote here in Peru. It seems like another very tough matchup to call, right? Because you go out there and you look at the personal records of the two, and I do think that both these guys have their flaws. I do think this is far from the least technical bout of the evening, but I do think both these guys have capable skill sets to succeed against various types of opponents. And that's a very broad way of saying, I don't think these guys are horrible. I think these guys both have competencies in a lot of the areas. It's just, are they going to go out there and fight the best of their abilities? Are they going to go out there and really fight for your money? I'm not as confident in this matchup as I thought I would be. You go out there, you look at a guy in Llontop, 23 years old, but he's doing okay there, 13-2 out of Peru. Decent kickboxing, a guy who I think has some good ability to work on the feet here, and I do think he's have the ability to hit a guy in Malik Lewis who was hit, who did gas out there against Peek, and although Peek is kind of an anomaly, is someone who can be pressured. I think there are questions about him the other way. Whereas I think if we look at a guy here, Malik Lewis, who is also very good on the feet, a guy who has some good striking in his own right, has some good length, even though they will be at the same size here, is someone who I think is going to have the more well-rounded aspect of his game. I think he is able to implement some ground game if he's able to. However, I'm not too sure if it goes there. And if we are looking at a 15-minute kickboxing affair, although Llontop has faced some questionable level of competition, he does seem to be a very competent striker on the feet who's been able to, be in there and to succeed. Whereas I have seen Lewis fall down the stretch. You have to take in the fact he's also being brought into Dana Contender's second time. Wonder why that is. Very interesting matchup to me. I'm actually on the fence about this one. I do think that the line might be a bit off considering all the unknowns we have, and this could be closer to a 50-50. I do think Malik Lewis is live. However, I don't have that same or the best amount of conviction to go out there and place a bet on it yet. Again, willing to be talked into it though. Pierce, what do you have to say about this one?
Yeah, man. So I parlayed James with Steve because I want to have action on all these fights so I don't get bored. But I think Steve's the rightful favorite here, man. Where Malik Lewis, he's very athletic. I'll give him credit. He does a good job of bullying guys, and I feel like a lot of his success is just him having massive athleticism advantages against his opponents. And I don't like his cardio, man. Even though he slowed down in the Peak fight, that might be a credit to Peak, just being an absolute madman. But I mean, even in his last fight, it did go to the third round. That's the first time he's been to the third round in his pro career. And I don't know, I wasn't as impressed as I thought I was with his cardio. It kind of just seemed like he had a warm body in front of him as the fight went on, and the takedowns came really easy. But he got dropped in that fight too. We can't forget that. And I do think Malik's probably going to pursue the grappling. He should look at the clinch with James. We've seen in a lot of James's fights they can play out against the cage. And he's been taken down a couple times in his FFC fights, but he seems like he does a great job to work back up. I will say, does turn the back. Maybe be careful that Lewis might put his hooks in, but I'm not convinced that Lewis is like some elite submission artist. But I did, since I'm already on James and like a parlay, I did also poke on Lewis by sub, because I think a lot of his win equity is an early sub where he can kind of bully James to the ground. But on the feet, man, the longer this fight goes, the more I favor James, dude. He does a great job fighting out of both stances. He can fight from southpaw and orthodox, and he really uses his range well. This kid's 23 years old, man, and he's fighting a lot. I think it's like 14 fights right now or something, man. So he's staying active, and he's looking good, man. I think he can go a hard 15 minutes, and Peru's being put on the map, man. We got Kevin Borjas earlier in the season. Got Jesus Pinedo doing his thing in the PFL, man. I know he doesn't train with these guys, but it goes to show that Peru's stepping up their game, and I feel like there's a reason this is the main event, not because Malik Lewis is the showcase. It's because they're trying to showcase this Peruvian kid. And I like James, man. Gordo, do you have what's the number on his late round props? Because that could be a path to victory for him, but I don't know if BetOnline opened a good price.
Plus 600 in round 3.
Yeah, maybe wait for DK. They're probably the ones that hang a high number, but yeah, plus 600 it makes sense. But maybe live bet. Live bet could be good because we know Malik's going to come out hot early. We saw against Peak. He hurt Peak really bad, and in a lot of his fights, he's getting first round, early second round finishes. So maybe James, good live bet, but I think he's rightful favorite, man. I got to favor the guy that's can put out more volume and has better cardio.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from here, and I'm not backing with Lewis with much conviction. I just think maybe the cardio disparity is a bit overblown here. I know Furio's talking about only 5 minutes of cardio. I think he's got more than that. I think that's a Trevor Peak thing, right? Trevor Peak pushing that pace, and I don't think Llontop pushes that same pace. I don't think his cardio is great, but to say it's 5 minutes, I think he is able to contend there if the fight is able to make that second to that third round. I don't think he'll be the freshest fighter, but I think it's a bit overblown to go out there and discredit his cardio that much. What I will say is I do think he's going to have an advantage, and although Llontop's having success, he is that Peruvian fighter looking to promote. He's not blowing me away. He's not going out there and smoking all these opponents. He's not going out there and really displaying a ton of athleticism or a ton of aggression that I'd like to see against Malik Lewis. However, I do think he may be the more trustworthy and known commodity in this spot here in terms of we know he's going to come forward. We know he's going to have some good technicality on the feet, and we know he can go all 15 minutes. So for that reason, because there's all these known quantities about the guy, you can go out there and back him. With that being said, I'm a risky man. I think Malik Lewis may have some ability to have some success here. And again, it's a large risk, a large if, because, you know, he can be rocked. His cardio does slow down, but I think he could have some grappling success. I do think he's an athletic guy himself, and I do think that it's no, let's say, I don't think that Llontop is necessarily a lock in this position. There is some value on the underdog here. Liam, though, break the tie.
I think it's going to be James, no James, James. I think our boy James is going to get across the finish line. When I look at this fight, man, I'll tell you what. Malik Lewis, not a bad fighter, to your point. I think that he's got some athletic skills. Here's the real reason I don't want to bet on a guy like Malik Lewis. For me, he quit in that last fight. Between you and me against Trevor Peak, like that, shout out to him, my guy, Dan Levy. There's no better way to say it, right? Between you and me, like I don't want to say that he quit, but like he definitely quit, right? Like 100%. You just go back and watch. He was having success. He got put on the ground, and you could see the moment where he decides, like, I lost this fight. And he just like covers up and just, dude, we've seen other guys, they're bitter enders, right? Dom Cruz, bro, you'd be putting this guy asleep. He's like still trying to get up, getting hit on the side of the head, fighting the referee. That's what we're talking about. When guys don't want to give up, you know what that looks like. But when guys are ready to give up, we know what that looks like too. He was ready to give up in the last fight, and it was in the second round. And it was against a guy who doesn't have very good martial arts skills overall, right? Trevor Peek, dog. You don't want to fight this guy, but also a guy you should be able to beat, especially when you're a high-level prospect. He's a guy that Chepe Mariscal didn't need 10 weeks and whatever, and a full training camp and all the amenity. It was up a weight on short notice, found a way to get the win, right? Easily, by the way. Multiple takedowns, had to take some big shots. It wasn't an easy fight, but easy win because he just had answers for all the lack of skills that this guy had. Malik Lewis didn't have that, right? He had athleticism. He had some skills. He clearly was more skilled than Peek, and he rocked him multiple times. He landed huge shots. That was the thing that was really impressive. I think Malik Lewis has a lot of power because Trevor Peek, guys, there was a few times. There's two guys on this card, Diniz and Malik Lewis, who are really good at trapping people's head for that knee, and they will catch you multiple times. Malik Lewis, he was landing knees to the body, knees to the head. Trevor Peek was like turn off for 2 seconds and then just like shake it off like it's a computer program, dude. The guy is a robot. So I do think Malik Lewis very live to finish this fight in the early going. But as the fight extends, his opponent just is more consistent. He's a more consistent presence. He's more steady. He's got 5 finishes in the second or third round. He's got a bunch of wins by unanimous decision. He could fight for 15 minutes hard. He can continue to pace himself over those 15. He could turn it up as the fight goes on. And the opposite's true of Malik. Malik's fights start to look worse the longer they go on. And I thought that in that Trevor Peek fight, there were signs at the end of round 1 that he was starting to give up, even though he was having success. Like, if you're out there and nothing's going right, and by round 2 you check out of there, I'm like, man, that stinks, but like, I get it. Like, it wasn't your night. You didn't see a path to victory. I got to get out of here, live to fight another day. This guy was clearly better, and he just decided at a certain point, I'm too fatigued to continue, so I'm going to get out of here. Well, I still can't, and I feel like this other guy's not going to get tired. My guy James is not going to get tired. So I think eventually James might get his ass whooped in round 1. I don't think he's anything to write home about. I think he's a little bit awkward on the feet. He's still a little hittable, but I do think he's tough. I don't think he's easy to put away. So I feel like he's probably got the upside here. Give me James round 2 or round 3. And I actually think the sub is how he gets it done because I think Malik Lewis is going to quit. So there you go. There's my contrarian take. I saw it at like 10-1. So I'll wait and see what that peaks at.
10-1 indeed. And you know what? I've made my decision, guys. I've made my decision. I'm not shying away from Malik Lewis. I think that he is still very live around when I'm going to stand by my research there. So my advice to you guys, which, take with a grain of salt. There's 2 very smart guys below me. If you're on Llontop, take him live. To me, this fight is going to be dictated how this round 1 goes. I think that Lewis is going to be very, very live for success in that first round. And if he does have success, either he's going to go out there and succeed in a victory, or you're going to really be able to see if his cardio is game or not. And I do think coming in that round 2, round 3, it is going to be Llontop taking over. Get him live there. Should be at a better number. But, to me, I'm not running to play Llontop minus 170, minus 180. And James is someone that I will leave to be bet by the 2 below me. But it is a very interesting matchup there nonetheless. One where, again, not too much conviction. Honestly, this might be a pass main event for me until we see how it goes. Potentially the under. Maybe if we get a good number on the sub, I'll join Liam there. But very, very interesting main event to say the least. However, that is going to do it for us here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. As we always do, we're going to run through our quick predictions, and being the selfish man I am, I'm going to go first. First fight of the night. First of all, I'm refreshing these odds because these lines have continued to be steamed. So I want to make sure we have the right thing in front of us here because the line's moving, man. It is Dana Contender Series. Matsumoto down to plus 100. So a little bit of buyback. He's going back and forth there. However, in this first matchup, I am going to take the shot on, I guess, the underdog here in Matsumoto. I know I'm head-to-head with Pierce. Either side, plus money is a good side. I do think it's a very close matchup. Of course, there is a possibility that Tanner uses physicality and wrestling en route to a decision. However, I do not think that is north of a 50% indication. Instead, I think Matsumoto has the ability to win the striking exchanges, be competitive on the ground as well, and win some optics. And I do think that we do have ourselves a very, very closely lined fight, one where I would prefer to have some plus money on the Matsumoto side, considering he has more paths to victory here. However, I do not mind anybody there. We'll also be looking at the fight finish only for Matsumoto. Next fight up, Polastri smash. I do think this is a setup fight for her, one where she has more paths to get it done. Give me the KO at plus 600. That's what I'm looking at that one. Just don't think Alujas is UFC ready yet. Speaking of UFC fight ready, Nguyen fight up next up there, and a guy who this is one where I don't have too much conviction either. I don't think he is the star of the show. I think there are holes in his game, but he is a large favorite, probably for good reason. I do think he has the better more trustworthy skill set of Cunningham here, but Cunningham is a dog, is resilient. I think he has the better, let's say, first round opportunity for him to go out there and have success. I just think as the fight goes on, Nguyen's going to be landing the straighter strikes, and he is my pick for that one. However, this line continues to climb. Might have to take a shot here in Cunningham because I do think he has the skills. It's just he's fought low level competition. It's a very interesting one. The next one's also really low level competition. I think this fight ends really early. It's just we're getting plus money on a guy, Neves, who has a grappling path to victory. The younger fighter is more proven, in my opinion, fighting by level of competition, and I do think he has more paths to get it done. Of course, there's an opportunity for these guys to be brawlers and fight and just swang and bang it away, and that could favor a guy like Diniz, but not enough to put him at a minus 150 price tag. Give me the shot on Neves. I do think he has opportunities to get it done. I'll take the dog there. And in the main event, I'm really torn on this one. I think you have to favor Llontop slightly. However, not with too much conviction. I think the line should be a bit closer. Lewis is a dog. He's going to go out there fight early. I recommend live betting Llontop on that one, but not much conviction in that one. Instead, I'm looking at maybe a shot on the finish only for Matsumoto, Polastri by KO, and then some way of playing Neves instead of distance there. Those are my looks this week. Liam, we'll go to you next. Quick picks for me.
All right, brother. I got you. First fight of the night. Not super bullish, but give me Matsumoto because I got to stop Brazilian hate. You guys know that. Next up, Julia Polastri. She's going to keep the train going. Let's stop Brazilian hate. The first two fights of the night. Patricia, she needs a little bit more seasoning, a little bit more experience in my view. I actually think Polastri gets it done ITD. I'd probably go with Matsumoto by a very close split decision type territory. Then when we look at the main card, featherweight bout, I'm looking at a dog or pass situation for me personally. I don't hate the early bets on Steve Nguyen, but just seems like a pretty wide line for a one-note striker to me who's not that powerful and who the UFC has had many opportunities to sign and didn't. So for me, that's a little bit of a red flag. But in any case, it's getting another opportunity. Best of luck to him. Eduardo Neves will be my pick for the next fight. Diniz, I did go back and check while we were talking. He posted a picture in September 21 of him on the top of a white belt podium. My brother, I was there with you. So I'll tell you this. I do not trust Diniz's ground game at all. I'm sure he's been working on it. He does seem to be pretty athletic, liked his weigh-in. He's got power, no doubt about it. But I just don't believe in this guy. I do think if he gets tested on the mat, that will be the first time he gets tested in a real way. Neves does have wins in jiu-jitsu competitions in Brazil. Give me Neves. And then in the main event, give me the Peruvian fighter here. Peru, they're on that wave right now. They've been getting a lot of wins. They've been doing a lot right. Malik Lewis, not a bad fighter, but a fighter that opens himself up to volatility. I think the UFC knew exactly what they were doing when they brought him in for that Trevor Peek fight. And I think they know exactly what they're doing, bringing him in again against a guy who he's going to go out there and bring the hammer to. They're going to find out if this kid's got a real chin, if he can actually defend himself. But if he can, I think in rounds 2 and rounds 3, the cardio difference is going to become very apparent. Give me James to get the win there in the main event.
All right, James it is. I know we got a first timer on the show here. Pierce getting some love in the chat. How about you give us your quick picks for the day, and we'll get on out of here.
Yeah, man. So I'm looking forward to this card, man. I got a couple bets. I like Casey Tanner in this fight. I think it's a pretty binary matchup. Casey's gonna go up for the grappling. I've seen Matsumoto taken down a couple times, so gotta bet Casey just because I see a path to victory for him. Matsumoto might keep it close, so maybe pass at these odds, but I think Casey's the side in my opinion. And Polastri, Alujas, I can't bet the money line. Alujas is too much of an unknown. We don't know where she's gonna be at. If Polastri pursues the grappling, then she probably can win easily. I think just bet her sub or ITD or just leave the money line alone. Stephen Nguyen versus AJ Cunningham. I mean, I think the price, y'all might think there's value on AJ. I think the price is accurate. I got a more technical, smarter fighter. And AJ could make it a dogfight, but maybe AJ decisions is the best way to play him if you guys are confident in him. But I think Steven's a lot cleaner, and he honestly might find the KO here after seeing the face-offs. Man, I liked how he looked. He looked jacked, looked ready to go. And then Neves, Diniz. I think we're gonna make the trifecta here. Probably means we should all put some money on Neves. I'm gonna go Neves. Don't get cute. I did play the submission, but that was a huge number. But maybe just a unit play here, just because Diniz is he hasn't proven anything to be a big favorite, so. Probably just got to play Neves just solely off the fact he has more experience. And then main event, James. I like James, man. I can't trust Malik Lewis to pass the fight well past 7.5 minutes. And James, good striker. As long as he can work up off the mat, because I know Malik's going to pursue the takedowns early. So it's either Malik early, round 1 sub, or it's going to be James taking over late. And I appreciate the platform, guys. And don't you guys forget, subscribe to Gordo, subscribe to Liam. And, let's make some money tomorrow, man. Looking forward to these fights. Hopefully I can get on for another episode this season. I know we got like 3 more left.
Sounds good to me, man. I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to talk some fights quickly. If you guys have any, feel free to shout them out after I'm done. But I will give our main man here, Mushroom, some love on the Hail Mary parlay, because you know we want some DGen parlay. They're right there. Mine this week is going to be DGen and DGen indeed, because it's starting off with Polastri by KO. Take Polastri inside the distance. You want to be safer, but that is a big plus money number. We're then continue with the under in the Cunningham to Nguyen fight, also plus money. And the third plus money leg for us is going to be Neves inside the distance. All 3 of them plus money. Those are the long shots. We don't know if we'll get to there. That is my DGen parlay this week. Do you guys have any you want to throw out there? No pressure if you don't. Platform is yours.
I could just tell you that if you parlayed all my money line picks together this week, it would be pretty significant. I just accidentally added a line by mistake, so I'm now trying to figure out what I just added. Okay, there we go. So if you just took my 5 money line picks here, which would be James, Cunningham, Neves, Matsumoto, and Polastri, that's paying over 30 to 1. So yeah, if you're into degenerate stuff, that is degenerate as it gets. So God bless and good luck.
All right, Pierce, anything to give out? Or you I know you already gave out some big plus money numbers.
Well, after Izzy caught me with my pants down on Saturday, so I don't know how I feel about parlays now. But if I had to pick, Casey Tanner money line, fight doesn't go to decision in the women's fight. We'll go, since you guys like AJ so much, we'll go fight doesn't go to decision in Nguyen versus Cunningham. Eduardo Neves money line, and we got we'll take James money line. So
yep. For if you aren't aware, Pierce, Mushroom is the DGen parlay king. I got to get him one every time, man. And OG supporter of the show. Every time I'm doing these shows, I'll make sure to give them out to him. But that's going to do it for us here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Everybody from the chirps I'm getting from Fury about the Bills game. I know I'm still wearing the gear. What is it wrong with me? I'll cry myself to sleep in it tonight. From the love that Mushroom's sending here as well. Frank calling Pierce Hawkeye. We'll ask Lou Becci about that because 3 young men right here. We'll have to figure what that is. Shout out to Pierce himself for hanging out in the chat there. And then Eric as well saying, great show. Thanks a bunch. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Make sure to hit the like button down below. Subscribe to the channel. Let's now hear from these two where we can find all their work. Starting off with Liam, because next week back, probably around the same time next week, because of the Monday Night Football games being constant now, we'll be back on Liam's channel for week 7. Tell him what else you got going on this week.
Absolutely. Pierce, you're, of course, welcome there, my brother. It was a pleasure to break down the fights with you as well. So shout out. I thought you made a great addition to the team tonight. And as far as where you can find my stuff, guys, you can find me everywhere at LiamPicksFights. That's on YouTube. That's on Twitter. If you want to go deeper, I do a ton of research on these fights. I try and share a lot of that in my verbal breakdowns, but I write a lot more than I could say. We have a small platform here to talk about this. So if you want all my notes on Contender Series, all that stuff, all the links you could find in the description below, but also you could find on all my platforms that I described. So God bless. I appreciate the support, and I hope that you guys all crush Contender Series.
Hey, me as well. And speaking of the description down below, make sure to check out whatever Pierce says here, because I'm taking notes and I'll be throwing it in the description down below as well after that. So where can they find you, Pierce?
Yeah, so there's not too many platforms. I guess I do daily Contender Series breakdowns with Brandon Olivas on Santino DeFranco's channel. So maybe catch me there if you guys are looking for some Contender Series content. But I'd love to probably be on here maybe next week if I can, man. Looking forward to it. And I guess I do have a Bet MMA tips. I kind of ruined my stats last week and losing a shit ton of money on Izzy and all my parlays. But Big Bird UFC, I'm going to keep it more straight picks. We're going to keep it sharp on there. So Big Bird UFC is my Bet MMA tips, all free. So I'm going to bless you guys with some free picks. And hopefully we can make some money tomorrow, guys. I'm looking forward to the card. Should be entertaining. And let's add some money to our pockets.
Love it.
Me as well. And go ahead. There we go. Me as well. And 70 minutes into the show, we are done. So what I'll make sure to do before I crash, before my classes tomorrow, I'll get this video timestamped. I'll throw Pierce's information in the comment section or the description section down below. And I hope all you guys have picked up some insightful knowledge into the slate we have tomorrow evening. My picks, though, They will be out tomorrow afternoon at Gambles Gordo on Twitter. Make sure to check them out there, as well as these two great sharp fellows below me. And then when it comes to YouTube, subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 1,000. Spread the word. Hit the like button down below as well. And if you guys have any questions or concerns, throw them in the comment section. I'll be happy to monitor them there. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in to this show. I wish everyone the best luck in Contender Series tomorrow, and let's make some money, guys. Peace.